Oh, welcome to Dipato. Hello, my friends. As many of you guys know, Simon is still working the night shift and he won't be able to to join us live, but he's going to be in the chat like always. However, tonight I'm pleased to have Miss Kita join me tonight. How you doing, Kita? It's great to have you
I'm
here.
doing good. I'm doing good. I'm so excited for tonight. We have such a
I
great guest. I'm
am
so excited.
too. I am too. Unfortunately, I guess I'll just start the show with with a little bit of bad news. Unfortunately, we were going to have Smoke in the second hour. Unfortunately, Smoke is not able to join us this evening, but he would love to reschedule, and we are going to get him on the books, and we'll get him to join us as soon as he possibly can. So that's a little bit of unfortunate news, but we will welcome him in when he can come and join us. So, and I want to say tonight we entitled the show "Unleashing the Network Effect," and as many of you know, before the digital age, we witnessed the powerful force of network effects in action, transforming the telephone networks and expanding our railroad systems. These networks became indispensable as more people and businesses connected to them, and they created a positive feedback loop. And the more the network grows, the more valuable it becomes, and it attracts even more users and driving growth even further. So tonight, I thought we would dive into the exciting world of the crypto industry, which is what we really focus on the show, and explore the network effect that's reshaping the financial landscape as we see more and more individuals and businesses adopt these cryptocurrencies. And we see their value and their utility surge, and we're going to talk about that later too, which then draws even more participants and accelerating the evolution of this groundbreaking technology. So tonight, Kita, we're thrilled to welcome our first guest, Quincy Jones. Many of you guys know him. He is from the XDC Network. Quincy is a visionary leader in the blockchain space, and he is going to share his insights on how the network effect is influencing the growth and adoption of the XDC network. And we're also hoping to catch a little nugget what he's been up to since we chatted with him the last time he was on Dipato. And so I'm super excited to have him join us, and I'm going to bring him in right now. So, hello,
Hey, how's
Mr.
it
Quincy
going?
Jones. Good. How are
Hello,
you?
hello.
Feeling
Nice to
great,
see
feeling
you.
great. Really appreciate bringing me on again. Always a lot of fun.
We love having you on Dip a Toe, Quincy. How I mean, it's been a little while since you were on the show. Um, I'm itching to know, like, we did the title of the show for the network effects, and I definitely want to talk about that. But I am just itching to hear if there's anything that you can tell what you've been working on lately.
Yeah, actually, sort of like one thing that's a bit of news, sort of in like the sort of in my space for a bit, as we've been putting together an accelerator, this plug and play accelerator to help incentivize and help build more sort of startups, new projects coming onto the network. And every quarter, we're going to have these new cohorts of new startups coming on into this accelerator in terms of being able to give them guidance, give them funding, and give them access to resources to help build on the network. So that's been a lot of it's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool. Been seeing a lot of talent and a lot of potential and a lot of new projects coming on the network. So that's
Wow.
sort of just been like the news piece. I don't know how much sort of like visual or optics it's been getting, but that's been like the big thing now. And hopefully, if everything goes well, we will have sort of like this syndicate of new applications that are all going to be that are all going to be newly provided for people on the FCC network, and hopefully it would hope increase the user base. The big idea is to allow them to build their own user bases, to establish a bigger user base on the network, and sort of do that a lot more organically. A lot of projects sort of like want to put out like a token or something and try to get a lot of investors. We're really trying to inspire projects to build up their own user bases. Now, this could be something like a social media application, a blog, a finance application, lending, whatever it is. It's about having them build up their user bases and allowing them to provide a service that people can continuously like reach out to versus sort of having like a hype cycle market sort of play. But ideally, with these new projects coming on the network, we'll have a lot more volume, we'll have a lot more users, we'll have a lot more activity. So that's gonna be really cool.
Wow.
That's interesting because I know for us, we for a while we would see you for quite a bit. We saw you on videos, we saw you, and then it was like, poof, he's gone.
Oh my,
And
it's I like to call it, it's
and
like the
not in a
off
bad
season. It's like,
way, not in a bad way, Quincy. It's just, and I totally like that's why I reached out. I'm like, I totally know you're busy. I totally know you're like totally immersed in all kinds of things, and the way your brain fires, I'm sure you're like locked in, and I totally get it. So tell us, what have you been doing with yourself for the last little bit?
well, one of the biggest things that I've been sort of focusing on has been uh like subnets, like subnet layers, which is something that we've been
Okay.
sort of working on for a little bit. And it really just comes down to how are you able to build, and it's really like sort of like how I'm able to build, but how are we able to build applications that can act as a middleware between institutions and these public markets or these public networks we've been working with, and this sort of actually just wrapped up maybe about a few weeks ago. We were working with a few different like institutional projects that wanted to build on the network, and I did sort of a lot of assistance on that, mostly centered around being able to build these subnet layers as that middle layer between their sort of like traditional infrastructure and the mainnet. So there's been a lot of activity on trying to sort of like from an advisory standpoint, work with a lot of organizations in their efforts to be able to build applications on XDC. And these aren't like startups like the accelerator. These are like full blown businesses that have like working models already doing a thing, but they're trying to take some aspect of their technology and be able to bring it onto these blockchains, primarily to be able to expedite settlements of some sort. So these could be a settlement of a payment. This could be the settlement of an asset. This could be the settlement of an agreement. Most of it's centered around that. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of, I guess you could say, sort of like advisory. I wish it was more programming because that's what I was gearing towards. But it's almost more like how can you work with their team to essentially build things, and then they essentially go and build it as we're sort of like guiding them through. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I
I
like
mean, so you're actually connecting or giving the businesses a leg up then that want to tap into this market by providing them something that's going to be easy for them to adopt or whatever in their current business,
Yeah,
right?
so this is actually the big problem with adoption, and this is sort of like what we're trying to tackle, at least head on. It's easy to say like, here's the technology, here's the software, here's the networks, here's all this, but it's not easy to be able to sort of coordinate and say, here's how these pieces of your traditional infrastructure slot into these pieces of these public networks. This is how you're able to convert a process in this way into a smart contract. This is how we're able to take all these different processes that were doing in a traditional environment and sort of like redesign them in a sense. Sort of like going through this redesign process of a given service that they've already built. So it's almost like building the Web3 version of what they've already got in a sense, you know?
So let me
Right.
ask you a question then, Quincy. So what
Mhm.
would you say is the most, I wouldn't say popular, but the biggest concern that you're seeing from those that are looking to XDC as the solution? What would you see is the major thing that they are looking to have as a solution that can come from XDC and the XDC network?
Yeah, there's like two big things.
Mhm.
One is being able to tap into a market where there's more liquidity than they otherwise would have. And sort of the idea with this is they have like a syndicate of partners that they could trade with, and they could potentially use the blockchain or use XDC to tap into other syndicates. We see this a lot with SPVs and real estate. There's this huge push to potentially be able to expand the total amount of people you can sell real estate to, primarily
Mhm.
like overseas. Like, and I say this in terms of like an investment sense, but there's like a huge push to be able to see like how can you be able to expand the total pool of people that you can sell something to, and then being able to tokenize these assets on these networks, and then being able to engage with these people. The
So you're
second
talking
thing
about
is,
so you're talking about like front and just and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're
oh
talking
yeah,
about so like one piece of land, 15 or 100 people want to buy this piece of land. you're trying to find a solution for it to be able to disperse that between those 100 people. Is
So
that what you're saying?
it's not particularly. It's more like this. Imagine you're a broker of some sort, right? And you want
Hmm.
to engage with, let's say, a syndicate of other brokers, but they all have their own payment terminals, they have their own databasing, they have their own whatever, right? And
Hmm.
to go through the process to interact with them could take days, weeks, or even just an extended
Hmm.
period of time. So the basic idea is to just expedite that with settlements. So take the asset, tokenize it, and these aren't with like individuals. Like this is like a business investor selling a collection of real estate properties to another business investor, but this other investor might be in another country. You see what I mean? And it just allows the
Hmm.
settlement to be a lot easier in
So
terms of that.
somebody just mentioned, is this like similar to like a pathfinding
Yeah, that's what
capability?
Throw said. Is that
Hmm.
pathfinding? Is it
It's
similar to that?
No, this is just the general idea of tokenization. I
Yeah.
tokenize an
Hmm.
asset, or I tokenize a basket of assets, and you can accept that asset as well as settlement as I exchange with you. The big thing that we focus on really is the subnet. So when you talk about subnets, it's like a middle layer. So they already have a process that already works. So let's say it was properties, right? Well, they
Hmm.
probably already have a process in which they sell properties, manage properties, broker properties, whatever. But then how do you take those properties and allow them to be on the blockchain? Well, normally people would say just make a token, but what ends up happening is you can't just segregate your traditional system and just make a token over here and still keep that account. So you sort of have to have this middleware that's sort of keeping account of what's already on your traditional system, but also move that to be tokenized on the blockchain. You see what I mean? And that
Yes.
it's not
Can I ask a
like
question?
this to be used for like anything. So we've seen this with properties, we've seen this with contracts, we've seen this with leases, anything that could potentially have a settlement that
Hmm.
already has a process being done in a traditional realm is really leveraging our subnets, but also leveraging the blockchain to make that settlement. And then the subnet is essentially like a middleware that gives them their own private Web3 environment before they can start moving to these public networks. It's sort of
So,
like that, like the glue.
can I ask a question then? So, what I think I heard you say, uh, right now, so they already have their processes in place how they're currently say selling a property.
Yep,
Um,
a business or
so
whatever. Because it's not just property. It could be any business. Like the last one
anything,
out. Yeah,
right?
yeah. So you have a
But
business and they have their process or
so
whatever sort of asset or whatever.
are you taking and mirroring basically what's available on the blockchain? So like, are they still doing their current process, mirroring that on the blockchain and executing it on the blockchain? Like, are they kind of running parallel at this point, or are they kind of migrating over?
It's not necessarily like that. It's more like so this is what we typically see. They'll set up a subnet so they have the private Web3 environment. It's almost like a private blockchain. They can build, because this is where things get really kind of intricate. Depending on the organization will depend on what processes they build. So they're not like one company is not just like one service. It's actually a collection of services all interacting with each other. So first thing, they'll find like one service that has a really big pain point, and they'll try to focus on how do you create a Web3 version of that on a subnet. And that's just their own private environment before they even bring it onto the mainnet. After they've sort of already established whatever service, whatever product, whatever, this could be an asset, a contract, lease, whatever. Once they've already established whatever that contract is, whatever that process is, and they've integrated that process into whatever their traditional system is, then they take a derivative of the asset, a derivative of the contract, a
Hmm.
derivative of whatever is on their subnet, and they push that as a token on the mainnet. And then you can trade that on the mainnet. But usually what ends up happening is most of them are sort of just focusing on really how do you create a better, like it's really like this circling system of how you can take what they're already doing and get more out of it. And usually what ends up happening is it's sort of stuck in this process of how useful can this be for what we're trying to get out of it. And usually what they're trying to get is instant settlement, but usually some of the harder like issues with that is like, well, we can issue this private environment and potentially even onboard people onto this private environment, but they're still hesitant to be able to custody the native asset, do the volatility. They're still like really hesitant on a lot of different things, but it's almost like this warming up to it by being able to start building in these private environments and then start moving. We see few do this, but most of them are just setting up in their own private environment so they feel comfortable to move that process onto the mainnet.
Jason Chan Jr. question, Quincy, when does the tokenization of derivatives on the XinFin network take place?
Technically, you could consider anything that's tokenized as a derivative.
Right? That's what I was just, I heard that, I was like, I think it is right now. With what?
Yeah, so like stable coins, for instance, that's like a classic derivative right there. That would already be considered a derivative for a lot of these things. Yeah, so like I say that because I know exactly what they mean. They're like how do you take like traditional assets, traditional derivatives, and put them, and what we see, and it's hard to sort of like picture this. So actually, here's a good way to see this, right? So here are all like the big dogs. Actually, oh, I got a whiteboard here. Hold on.
Look at you.
We got the whiteboard, people. While he's grabbing this, I want to say hello to all the folks. Crypto Bacon Bits, Crypto Bimbo, The New Mindset. We love you. Matt Riley, we love you. Throw Inks here. Bullish Big D's here. Jason Chan Jr., Marvin Davis, Susan Roblin. Who else? Our lovely Simon, who we love. Cheap Suit. T.O. Trini, our friend Quincy. T.O. Trini says, what up, guys? BBB is here too. Thanks for stopping by, guys.
All right, so let me explain this. This is what's happening. And it's almost like the inverse of what people want to happen, but it'll make sense. It'll make sense when I explain it. So let's say you have this, right? And this is just a giant pool of all the financial organizations in the world. So let's just say, we'll just put fin just for finance, right? It's a giant pool. And let's say it's worth, I don't know, 100 trillion. Cool. And within this giant bubble are all the big companies, the BlackRocks, the JP Morgans. So when people think of tokenization and they think of the derivatives, they think of this. They're like, oh my God, all these assets, holy cow. But what ends up happening is this operates, so you may have $100 trillion in all these assets, but this also operates off of billions of dollars of traditional infrastructure. Billions of dollars of infrastructure that they're just not going to just snap up and give up out of nowhere just because of the idea of a prospect of some new technology. So now let's say we have this, right? A smaller pool. This pool is a lot smaller, but not too small. It might be worth like, I don't know, 500 bill. But not 100 trillion, right?
That's not small.
Well, in comparison to the 100 trillion, it's now I say this because this 100 bill is made up of a bunch of fintech startups. So we have the financial sector, and then we have these and they're not all startups. So let's just say fintech, but they're like these new financial technology companies, and they're a lot more flexible than these giant like financial organizations. So what we're seeing, especially with the partners that we work with, we're seeing a lot of these like flexible fintech companies that want to rival these financial institutions, but their technology stack's a lot more flexible. So they're willing to try a lot new things to be able to compete with these big guys, even though
just saying.
Yeah. So a lot of the businesses that we deal with, they're big, but not mega giant megacorp big. They're these fintech organizations, and they're flexible. And that's the big thing that we notice. They are flexible. They're either their departments are small enough to where they can coordinate between each other, or they're sort of like all merged together, so they're all sort of on the same page. Because when we work with them, we work with like a bunch of different people from the organization, from their legal people talking about what needs to legally be done, to their engineering team, to their CFO, like whatever, right? It's hard to do that at like JP Morgan. Like, I'm sorry, like how many people like can I possibly even institute a test idea? Because usually it starts off as a test before we start going into building anything further. So when people think of like tokenizing the real or tokenizing these markets, they think of this giant, and I only say that because this right here is only made up of like 20 brokers. This is like 20 organizations that make this up, maybe like 50 or something. Like really, like it's not a lot. Where here, there might be like 1,000 of them. Like there's like 1,000 of these guys in here. And they're all trying different things, and they're all trying new apps, new software. Some of them are dipping a toe into crypto. And we see a lot of that. So and also this could also include like the new DeFi applications that you see as well. Like it's not just straight up like traditional fintech. This could be new age financial technology startups. Now, the reason I say this is it's easy to look at this pool and to go, wow, there's 10 trillion in gold and 20 trillion in securities or whatever. You see what I mean? But what we started realizing is when we start working with a lot of these individual like fintech companies, there's a bunch of other sort of like sub domains or sort of like these subcategories that people never think about. The biggest ones that I see are leases. So like
Mm.
it sounds so strange, like leases, yeah, like tokenizing a lease and being able to keep
Yeah.
track of who's keeping track of a lease. Like, yeah, there's a zillion things like that are
Oh
all
my
little processes that could potentially be tracked, that could potentially be verified, that could potentially be traded, that could potentially all these little sub processes that are all within this fintech realm. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why I sort of say like the big one that you see right now is real estate. So real estate sort of like dips its toe into the financial realm because it's big enough, but there's 100 of these smaller little processes that can either be tokenized or be referenced as contracts on chain. So a lot of the people that we, and I only say that too because you got to remember, these are a lot more ambitious. If you're a giant mega corp, mega bank, well,
yeah.
if you just improved your efficiency by 2%, your company made billions. You don't need to try anything new. A lot of these guys are like, hey, look, we can keep doing the same thing, but we think we can scale 2x, 3x, 5x, 10x our organization if we adopt this new technology. And that's sort of the
Yeah.
idea with that.
Yeah.
So, question for you, and this is just going into what we've been seeing in the last couple of days. And I'm not sure if all of this is just because of sentiment or, with, and I'll go into it. I'll say it, yeah, from the election, and now we have a new president-elect. And so what I'm really trying to understand is how does that affect your network, as well as do you see it really coming to fruition? Because we've seen ups and downs. We've seen a $94,000, Bitcoin, within the last, actually today.
Crazy.
So how do you see that fitting in when it comes to the network, XDC, and how you all are going to be moving?
Yeah, so this is actually really interesting because this goes into another interesting idea. So there's like two things in crypto that are happening at the same time. And like they're almost opposites, but they can't exist without each other. And
Mhm.
here's what's happening, right? So with the election and with the new administration, there's a lot more attention around crypto, and that's like the attention economy, right? And that brings in a lot of new capital. A lot of new crypto projects are birthed off of the attention economy based off the prospects and potential and all that, right? But then you have, let's call it the labor economy, right? And these are the people that are like building the stuff. And what I see is, and it's sort of, you see these in these cycles, the labor economy has to do everything it can to make what they're doing seem as important as possible. And the attention economy is primarily focused on encapsulating as much attention as you possibly can on a particular thing and trying to see if you can get more people to capture it on that. So and I only say that because with the new election, there's this huge boost in like attention, but from a fundamental standpoint, that doesn't actually change the underlying labor component. You know what I mean? But I mean, I take that back. I lied. It does change the labor component. It changes it going from we need to stop coding today and start marketing so people know who we are and we are like relevant. So that's what happens. So what ends up happening is now there's a cycle coming into play. Instead of focusing on whatever new app or new DApp or new whatever service coming out, there's sort of like a huge push towards attention. This is the project. This is what we've done. These are new updates. These are new news. Da 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 da. And it cycles back and forth between shouting at the rooftops that you're new, you're big, something's interesting, and then going back to like not like the drawing board, but like trying to build more interesting things. And you may go, why not both? Well, what happens when you try to do both is you suck at both. So whoever focused 100% on building, they're kicking ass, and whoever focused 100% on marketing, they're freaking the biggest one everyone talks about. So you end up sort of stuck in this, and I see this with the new administration coming in. So when it comes to XDC, really all that's happening is well, there sort of seems to be this attention super cycle with the election, with the new administration, this pro positive crypto stance ish, if you like to say. I only say that because people forget that Trump put in, what was it, Jay Clayton, and he was the one
Yeah.
who filed the lawsuit originally. So it's like
Yeah.
we're like back around again, like.
Deja
But
vu.
no, but no, like it's just we're diverting a lot of efforts from sort of just having our heads down and building to essentially trying to get attention on the things that are being built, things that have been built, or attention on the people that are building, like these new accelerators. And then yeah, it's sort of like how do we get more? How do we focus more on that attention economy while simultaneously not sacrificing on the labor component in terms of like building new things or at least inspiring new things to be built on chain.
Mm.
I
I want
like
to
it.
ask. I want to ask you. So, a lot of our viewers are, of course, like they're big XRP people. Some people are uh, XLM. All these types of things. How does XDC differ from those projects? What
Oh
what's
yeah.
what's the biggest thing that makes you stand out different than, say, an XRP? And this is for the dipitoers that might not know, the difference.
Yeah, so this is where I have to go back to my classic pool party analogy. This is an answer not just for XBC but for every network. Or at least most networks, I guess you could say. Like, but the main gist is I get asked this question more than any other question ever, outside of like when moon, right? So
Yeah,
um
right.
the thing, yeah, right. So the thing that I end up originally so this is what I would normally say. I'd say, oh well, XDC, we have our subnets, we have this net, we're EVM compatible, all this tech, da da da. No, that doesn't matter. None of that matters. That's not really what makes it special. We could have, I make the joke and say we could have the software that cures cancer. We could have amazing software. That's not what matters. And it actually goes into your original point about the network effect. What matters is the network of people on the network and the engagements that they're having between each other. And these are dynamically different on each chain. It's easy when people point this out when they talk about like V chain being like supply chain, or XRP cross border remittance, or XDC trade finance, or Bitcoin store value. These are all have different. The pattern of behavior of how people interact on that network is dynamically different. So the software there's like a 70-80% overlap, right? But when it comes to how people engage with each other is entirely different. Some networks are almost entirely fueled by meme economies, while other networks are entirely fueled by cross-border, like some other factor that is entirely different or even diametrically opposed to what's happening on another network. So with
Yeah,
XDC, our biggest focus is trade finance. And what is trade finance without partners to trade with? Like I could have every asset under the sun. I could have all 100 trillion assets. If I have no one to trade with, what's the point
doesn't
of
matter.
that? So one of the biggest things that SEC, and you may say, well, Quincy, couldn't other networks focus on trade? It's not just focusing on trade, it's the type of trade. It's easy to say trade finance and trade, but then I brought up the notion of how can you certify or how can you tokenize leases? And that's a type of trade. And there are people that engage in that type of trade. Now, the biggest thing that we're trying to do, or at least with XDC, is try to inspire more and more people to engage in just a very specific type of trade. Mostly, the most organic seems to be the tokenization of different assets, services, and being able to utilize the settlements of the main chain to be able to focus on this engagement between these assets and services. And I'll even say, like, originally we were almost focusing almost entirely on sort of like institutional liquidity, where now we're almost trying to focus on, and not even focus, it's like what's the activity that's being facilitated. So now it's mostly the activity is primarily focused around building user bases around financial products. But that's just unique to XDC. If you go to XRP, like how many different organizations on XRP are doing the exact same thing on XDC, or how many people on Bitcoin are doing what's on XRP, or how many people are, you see what I mean? So the
Yeah,
big thing that makes XDC different is the pattern of behavior and the reason why people come on XDC to trade. And it's actually, I would say, for most networks, it starts off very vague and it becomes more and more narrow. Because even if you look at VeChain and you say supply chain, okay, well, there's like 1,000 different types of supply chain. There may be a specific type of supply chain that gets localized on that network because that's where everybody goes to be able to engage in that type of trade. There may be another network that focuses on supply chain, but a completely different type of supply chain in some regard, and people may go there for that reason. And that's really what separates the networks is the activity that people engage in. So when we see Trade Finance, ZinFin, Trade Tech, all these different organizations being able to conduct trade with each other, that's what makes XDC different. You can't go to another organization, you can't go to another network and be able to find tokenized trade documents. You can't go to another network and being able to certify and validate different, and maybe you can in other regards, but there's a specific type of trade engagement. So maybe someone's doing documents for video games, or maybe somebody's doing documents for. It's hard to describe because there's like thousands of different possible things you can do. Yes, there's so freaking, and I say that because like it's easy to name the big ones, but like there are people whose entire industry is to work on things you've never even heard about, and maybe you've heard about it in passing vaguely, but like that's their whole job is to go down this one route of trade, this one route of construction or verification or whatever. And I say that because part of the reason too is if you don't, you partly see people trying to do the same thing as well, so you see that as well, but it's the activity on the network with the services that are provided. So what is trade finance without trade partners and being able to trade with those partners on a consistent basis? So yeah, it just comes down to like, I guess you could say it comes down to enterprise trade localized around tokenized assets. That's the network sort of goal, I guess you could say.
I mean, it's really important. So, I mean, the term network effect refers to the phenomenon where a product or service becomes more valuable as people use it. And it occurs because the utility or product or service is directly related to the number of users in the network. All right. Yep. So that's the definition. So I'm listening to you talk. What I'm hearing is, you create a niche or whatever you want to say. This is what we do, and we do it well. These are our customers. These are the people that are using our network. And so therefore the users of your network also represent your network because they're going to be the network effect when others see them successfully doing business through your platform, being able to utilize what you guys have built. Their colleagues and other businesses are more inclined to go to where they see success and ease. And, and so the more and more people that you get to come onto your network and use it successfully and then talk about it, the more people that come in. And since I'm learning about all these different networks and meme coins and all these different things, and you're right, people are building all kinds of things across all the different platforms. And some of them overlap and, but at the end of the day, the people that are using it are what's going to really drive more and more users to come to your network or whatever network. Am I close in?
Yeah. I was going to say a really good analogy would be to put it like, look at social media platforms. If you were to say all social media is the same because you can make posts and you can repost and you can comment and you can like, you'd be entirely misinformed. Twitter is different from Facebook, which is different from Instagram, which is different from all these other social media platforms.
So.
The thing that makes them, the thing that makes that platform isn't the code or what database it runs on, or even the fact that it has likes or retweets or anything. It's the behavior of the people on that platform. People on Twitter act differently than people on Facebook. The people on Facebook act differently. 100%. And it's just like that with these networks, except it's not as easy to see as like, someone on this social media platform is different than someone on this social media platform. But it's like someone's conducting in trade finance in this way versus someone conducting trade finance in this way. You can say they're both trade finance. You can say they're both in the realm of trade. But when you start really getting into the niche of it, the behavior is fundamentally different. And you really have to get down to the underlying levels of that behavior. Like I said, it's easier to talk about real estate and securities and bonds, but it's hard to talk about documents and validating leases and like other just random things, you know what I mean? Like,
Where you know, when you get all the money talk and all this kind of stuff, but you're talking about laying the day-to-day stuff that we're dealing with, and you know, it and putting real world implementation onto these networks where people can actually use them for something that they do every day. And I agree with you. The demographics of people are just so different from place to place. People, and some people are more inclined towards one type of environment than another. And so, you know, say you go to a YouTube channel, the folks that are watching YouTube, they're different folks than are on Twitter or X or Facebook. It's the vibe is different. And so we'd be silly to think that business is any different than that. And so that's why I think it's really important that we all do work together. You know, of course, there's the friendly competition in that, but it's really important that you all succeed, you know, that you all are victorious in what you're building, because we also don't want just one, right? We to rule them all. We want it. We want there to be choice. Also, if you're in a company and you want that competition, so that, you know, if I come to XDC to onboard with you and tokenize whatever, some part of my business, I want to know that it's going to be great, and I don't need to go anywhere else, right? Which is going to keep you guys working the best that you can and furthering it. So I think this whole thing is exciting, of what's being built. What were you going to say something, Kita?
No, I'm totally in agreement, and I'm sitting here listening to this, and I was already excited about the industry and about the opportunities that we're getting, and I get more excited, especially especially listening to Quincy, because he's so well versed and he's so, you know, he
So
has so
amazing.
much knowledge, and is able to give it to us in a way, even though it's fast, he's able to give it to us in a way that's understandable and digestible. And that's what's important. You know what I mean? Because we have so many people now that we are going to see FOMOing in, you know what I mean? Just because of what we have seen in the last couple of days. You know, so we're going to have so many new people that are now just trying to wade their way through and trying to understand just all of the dynamics of what this space is and this ecosystem is building. You know what I mean? And I think it's important to have these types of voices. And I see Optimistic Prime has made her way.
Hello, my
Hello, Miss
friend.
Amanda. How are you? How are you? And you know, that part of it is so cool. You know what I mean? Like for me, I always say I'm not a techie at all. I wouldn't profess to be. However, I'm a critical thinker. So for me to be able to hear this, be able to get what you're saying, not be versed the way that you are, and for me to get it, understand what you're saying, and for me to be able to implement that and see that from my own standpoint is just killer for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So Quincy, this is like, mhm. In terms of what, so the dipitour, the part of the reason for this show, where I wanted to talk about the network effect, okay?
Yeah.
Because I personally believe that we have the opportunity of a lifetime to educate ourselves, investigate this space, research these different projects, dip your toe into them a little bit, because what's being built is just incredible. And just like we saw with the telephone networks, the internet, the railroads, all the things that come along with building that infrastructure, and the demand it ended up having, like, everybody has to have a phone now, you know, everybody has to have the internet now. That wasn't that way when it first came out. And I see this just going quicker and quicker and quicker. Like we've been following it for such a long time, but sometimes, you know, it feels like it's fast since we've been in it for so long, I see like the progression is just happening quicker and quicker and quicker. So I'm just, for someone who's dipping their toe into this, why do you think that they should give their attention to XDC? Like, there's so many coins out there, there's so many projects out there. Why do you think somebody should put this at the top of their list to start researching, compared to some of the others? And I know you can't talk about price, and I'm not asking you to do that. But I just, just for the layman person that's just coming in, why would you tell them, just give this a look-see? Just give it a little look-see.
One thing, so this is interesting. One thing that I like to sort of equate blockchain technology to is cloud infrastructure technology. I say that because the use case is sort of invisible. Right now, like 80% of the applications you use, websites, mobile apps, whatever, probably runs in the cloud of some sort. And there was a time where that wasn't the case. They would have to set up some giant warehouse somewhere, probably multiple warehouses to make sure they had region coverage, multiple people that had to be employed. Now these are like set up by cloud providers. But I bring this up because cloud is like an invisible technology. It sort of completely took over. Everything's in the cloud now. There was a time where if you had a computer and you were like writing up a paper and your computer died, that would be like gone.
You're screwed.
Now,
You're screwed.
yeah, now with the cloud, it's like, oh, it's in the cloud. Like it's right there, the last thing I typed on.
For the dipatoers, can you tell the dipatoers what the cloud is so that they know?
Yeah. So when I say cloud infrastructure, I'm just meaning that, and I'm trying to put this in like the simplest, like layman way. Traditionally, I guess you would put it this way. Traditionally, you would have to set up your own servers whenever you're building a backend to an application. Now, with cloud infrastructure, I can essentially pay Amazon or Google or Microsoft to host the servers for me. So with basically a few clicks of a button, I can essentially set up an entire server stack versus me having to set up that server physically in a building somewhere, paying for the electricity and all of that. And I say this because the average person has like, it's in a weird way, has no interaction with cloud technology while having a lot of interaction with cloud technology. The average person probably doesn't even realize that Amazon runs like a good portion of the internet because it's cloud, or like anything like that. But it doesn't change the fact that its impact is there. It's real. So when I look at a lot of blockchain technology, it's sort of like that. Now, why they would want to come to XDC is sort of like almost like trying to pitch a regular person why they should choose this cloud provider. You know what I mean? All of the, and I'm not saying that as in like sort of like a nick or anything. It's just a weird proposition because there's a lot of value, but the value that's being explained is very, very, very specific towards a specific type of individual. Usually someone who's using it. Almost like imagine creating a tool, but then trying to explain to people who don't use the tool why it's valuable. It's sort of weird, like in that regard. And it doesn't change the fact that it is valuable. It's the tool is abstract. Now, the reason I brought up originally cloud providers is like cloud is so big, it not only runs the internet, but like Amazon can take a loss on Prime and then make that up and then some with profit with cloud. And it's huge, huge. We interact with it every day and we don't even really know it. And I think crypto is exactly like that. But right now, all we see in crypto, and this is sort of like the reason why you should get into XDC is sort of like a reason, it's sort of like more of like a, how do you evaluate something that looks valid or at the very least looks like it has a legitimate future? So right now, let's not even think about XDC. Why are you looking at crypto? Well, there's a lot of sort of speculation in crypto, but also with that speculation, there's a lot of sort of like, I don't want to call it fraud, but there is fraud, but there's sort of a lot of hoopla, a lot of hype, right? So the real question isn't why should they choose XDC, is what separates XDC from the hype, right? That's the real question there. Because everything looks like hype. If you can't even do that, like that's sort of the question, why would you choose XDC? And the biggest thing that I would have to say to that is most of the hype is geared around, and let's use the analogy for cloud providers, is geared around trying to pitch the average everyday person that they're going to have a better time with cloud. But it's doing this through the lens of how the person can comprehend it. So it's almost like saying, well, if you use this cloud provider, you'll make this much money or save this much money, as opposed to tangibly trying to outline what type of things these systems do. When I talk about XDC, I outline the fundamental, or at least these underlying facets that make it valuable, some of the underlying things that allow people to understand what brings value to it, rather than this speculation or this hype or this idea of value. And the biggest thing, at least that I can sort of emphasize, is if you're going to choose a blockchain network, you should choose a network that you think has a level of viability to it. And the only way to do that is to understand why it has a level of viability to it. Why would people build using this technology? Why people would use this in this regard? Who may be potentially using this in this regard? And I don't mean like in a hype cycle way, like, oh, BlackRock just did this. No, like, what about, I erased it, but what about all these teeny tiny little freaking fintech companies that you guys never heard of? When I first came onto the scene, part of the reason why I blew up, Corda was like the biggest thing. That was one of the first technologies I worked on, with distributed ledger. Corda is used by tons of companies, people that never knew of that. And that's sort of my intro to this. So when I see that, I'm like, there's a lot of technology that are very useful and almost look very boring, and they're not as sparkly. But when people ask why would I choose this technology over another, just sort of like a fundamental understanding of what viability do we have into the future with this? What are people doing? What can people do? What are these different technologies? And I say this because you may go, well, Quincy, all this to me looks like magic internet money. I have no idea. And all I have to say to you is, well, here's this. If it sounds silly, don't interact with it. So if I'm talking to you about XDC and you're saying it sounds silly, don't interact with it. But it also goes with every single asset that anybody ever pitches you. You're sitting here and that was just going, I don't know, it sounds silly, don't interact with it. But if you find someone like me, or find someone that whether you trust, or someone that whether works in the space, and it seems to make sense to you, I'd say that'd be the first step into seeing whether or not you'd want to consider this a good technology. But the sense isn't just coming from, I can tangibly make sense. Because yeah, that's one thing. It's, can you see how this could potentially have a long-term viability into the future? Now, this is like, I say this because this is like my biggest criticism of memes and meme coins. There's been like a huge push in the past like year or so to have more meme coins on XDC, bring up TVL, bring up volume. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool in the short term, but what is it to have a project that doesn't have any legs or any like level of sustainability to it? It doesn't necessarily bring any sort of like long-term prosperity. It brings short-term volatility and a lot of hype. And that doesn't actually create like a sustainable product. So the original question, if someone asks, why should I choose XDC? When you hear me or hear anybody talk about technologies, or any of these technologies, and this goes for AI too, or anything else someone tries to pitch you, when you're sitting there looking at this, can you sit there and go, not only can I see this expanding beyond its current use case, I can see how other people who aren't using it can use it. That's the key. If you're sitting there going, I can't see how someone would do this, yeah, don't touch it. Like that's just how I look at everything. I'm like, I don't see it, but it's vice versa. Because when I say this because this is my experience in cloud. So when I was focusing on cloud development, I saw this in cloud development where like everything was going like AWS and nobody really knew of it, and it was just wild. Like AWS job, you could get a 6-figure job working in an AWS stack easy like that. But people didn't know about it, and it was just. And I remember spending a lot of time trying to explain it to people, but then I started realizing that, and this is where it comes to crypto. The thing that the reason why it's valuable and the people that are going to bring it long-term viability are not the same people being pitched crypto right now. And you almost have to put yourself in the position of someone who would use this tool to understand if it has a future or not. And it's hard. Like, this is not an easy thing. It's hard for me too. I work in the space. I'm a software developer. Like, it's not easy. And it's not really like it's not like meant to be easy. But at the very least, it can give you a level of assurance in knowing that. And I say this because like, it's easy to say this now, but it's one thing to say like in the hype cycle when like 50 million meme coins go to the moon and everyone's making a bunch of money and you're like, oh my God, look what you said. It's the same thing. Like we can go back to 2001 and I can show you pets.com that had a net worth of like $10 billion, right? That's bankrupt now. Like it just happens all the time. So it's not just like, I say this because everyone does this. They go, what about these other projects? I made all this money. I'm like, you can go into every hype cycle bubble ever and find people that made money. Like, it's the funniest thing ever. But it's one of these things where I'm like, if you're trying to hop in as a speculator, jump around, trying to make a bit of cash, that's one thing. If you're totally going for it, go ahead and do it. But if you're sitting here and you're confused and you're not really sure what to do with this space, I'd say try to get an understanding of why someone would use this and what someone would do with it in the future. And I say this because what's going to happen, and it's not that you have to be a software developer to understand this. You don't. This is actually funny because I see this a lot. If you work in a particular niche, a field, whatever. I was talking to this guy in real estate, right? And he was like the biggest crypto skeptic ever. Like I was talking to him about like XDC and he was like, oh, is that like Doge or whatever? Totally flipped this guy. And all I was talking to him about was just settlements. I'm like, how long did it take for you to be able to settle a property? How long did it take you to do this? How long did it take you to do that? And once he got into the mind of what he could do with it and what he could see other people, he's like, yo, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
game.
what?
And I'm like, yeah, he knew nothing about the technology. All I started telling him about was like what people can do with this, why people do it in this way, how they would go about it this way, how I would do it this way. Can you see it this way? And as soon as they see it, it's like it's not looking at the technology, it's looking at how people can use the tool and seeing how that can expand. And I say that because everyone has their niche. So you'll find something in your niche and you go, wait a second, couldn't I potentially do? And it's like, yes. And not only can you see that you could do it, you can see other people potentially doing it as well, especially if you see it especially valuable. So like that's the key thing is like when you hear people talk about these things, I would try to get as much of an understanding on the potential future viability based off of what you believe people can do with it, as well as what they're doing with it right now. And it all just comes down to just you feeling comfortable in the explanation that was given. You know, like some people may go on and say, oh, this asset's a store of value. And you may say, malarkey. Okay, fine, don't touch it. Don't play these silly like hype games where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm in, I don't know if I'm out. You're more likely just to completely blow your account just by being bashful or hesitant because you're FOMOing into some sort of project versus actually just saying, hey, I feel comfortable with this because I understand it. Now I only say this because I'm like, I guess that's just how I look at things. But
Yeah. I mean, you just blew through so many great points. I mean, you nailed it. Like that's definitely going to be a clip because, you know, for those of you that are listening, I want to say hi, Nina Blossom, and MetaMan came to see you, Quincy. Greg Kelly,
that's a good one.
welcome to the show, and our good friend Optimistic Prime. You know, so many people do get sidetracked with the whole meme culture or the Bitcoin narrative or whatever it may be. Even XRP hype or, you know, the price, when moon, all these types of things. Right. Crypto and the digital asset space, the blockchain space is so much more than a meme token or an NFT or whatever you see people talking about. And so diving deeper, you're going to do yourself a great favor if you just give this some attention instead of, you know, adhere or like gravitating towards the things that they want to divide us and have you fighting about dumb things and things that you can't change. This is something you can change for yourself, is educate yourself on this space and start looking into these projects like what Quincy is talking about. This is no joke. This stuff is being built and it is serving a purpose and it will go towards this. All this stuff is happening right now and you have the opportunity to start learning about it, purchasing some of it, whether you purchase a company that's going to utilize this or you purchase the tokens, doesn't matter.
And I've got a self hack for everybody too, because here's the next question, right? Here's the next question. So people go, oh, do your own research. What is my research? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to look. What do I do?
Yeah.
I've thought about this for like years at this point, right? Because normally I would say, well, as a developer, I would go read the developer documentation. That's how I know, but everyone's not a developer and they're not going to read through hundreds of pages.
You're also versed on that as well, Quincy.
Here's what you should do. And this is what I realized. And I sort of realized this from people asking me questions. Find a project. So if you don't know anything about a network, a project, or anything, find someone who's doing something in that project realm and just ask them, yeah, man, what's the point? Just no, seriously, and just ask a few people like this. What's the point? And don't get them. What I'm trying to do is don't if you ask no. You don't. So if you ask a question like almost like a when moon question, it turns into a sales pitch. You don't want a sales pitch. You want to just know why do you see it as valuable? But I say that because let's be very careful. Some people might think that you're asking, oh, should I invest in this? And they'll give you the sales pitch to invest in it versus like let's say someone came to me and they're like, Quincy, why XDC, right? What's the point, right? What's the point? I'll tell them, look, there's a syndicate of trade finance organizations that primarily use XDC and birthed the XDC network to bring institutional trade and settlement. That's the point. You see what I mean? And you may go, okay, and then maybe you go to somebody else in XDC and ask them that. So, but the whole point is find someone who's working in the space who you see and may say, hey, look, what they're doing seems to be valuable. Maybe I should ask them why they consider that valuable. Now I say that because it's easy to do that and ask a bunch of people in the space. And I say this because you gotta be really careful. If you phrase the question wrong, they'll give you a sales pitch. So like I say this because I deal with a lot of people, but if you're just questioning why someone would use the technology or don't understand the technology, just getting insight into why somebody else is using something or sees something as valuable and getting their level of explanation around it can at the very least fill you in. Because I say this because usually people want to go the technical route. Don't think about things technically. Think about things conceptually, right? Like, what are they doing? Like, they're not going to sit there and go, well, I use Solidity code version this. No, they're going to tell you from a very abstract sense. We're trying to do X, Y, and Z, and ask enough people that's trying to do X, Y, and Z, and then based off that, gauge how you feel about where that network's going. Now, I say that it goes both ways. So you can feel more confident, or someone can tell you, oh, it's about the meme coins, man. Oh my God, the next crypto kitty. Oh, they're creating a Doge department. Yeah, Doge 2.0 is going to the. You can hear that too as well. Take with it as you will. Like, if you're into the hype cycle, meme cycles, cool. If you're not, cool. But at the same time, remember, don't get too hung up on the FOMO, because that's also part of the game where people will try to say, oh, well, it's a weird, oh goodness, like, I say this because no other market's like this. Like, imagine being at like Apple, right? And Apple comes out with like the iPhone 20 or something, right? And a bunch of people want to buy the iPhone 20. Well, when people go to buy the iPhone 20, the number one question is, how good is the iPhone 20? Not how much is this going to pump the stock, and why is the stock not going up, and why is it like, it's like a weird, and I only say that because, yeah, there are some people that sort of operate in that sort of like capital markets component, but with crypto, it's always like that. Like, it's hard to really get a grounded sense on, like, beyond the hype, beyond the valuation. It's really hard to get beyond that because that's sort of one of the driving factors for a lot of things. But yeah, if you can, just ask people to get an understanding. Why do you see this as valuable? What's the point of this? Try to avoid the sales pitch, because like, they should be giving you why they see it as valuable, not trying to convince you that it's valuable. You see what I mean? Like,
I don't know if you know, author and poet XDC has collaborated with DTCC, Swift, Mbridge, and so many others. People can't see it because it's not marketed to retail.
that's our number one. I'd say that's our number one. It's like a blessing and a curse. Like, our number one, like, best thing ever, but worst thing ever. It's like, we're like, there really is a lot of attention in that like institution space. Actually, there's enough tension. There's enough attention before I would have to chase them down. I've had a few people come and chase me down. So it's like, there's like a lot of attention in the institution space. Retail, what, what? Are there any meme coins? What? I don't hear anything. And I don't fault retail for that. So it's not like to make fun of retail or anything. It's that like crypto is very much tightly coupled with this speculation culture, and it ties in the future of the technology with that speculation. And it's not a bad thing. A little bit of speculation brings enough capital to start and jumpstart projects, but it very much sidetracks a lot. And then people get FOMO, and then people are like, should I get into this project? And then people are like, oh, is it valuable to get in this project or not? And when I hear that, it's easy to say, oh, I've been invested in this thing and this isn't panning out. But then like, I think to myself, like, imagine being in the 90s and like being like an Apple believer. And I only say that because there was a time where Apple was like 30 days away from bankruptcy. Like, an Apple believer. And then people telling you like Apple's garbage. Like, and I only say that because like, there are valid reasons to be an Apple believer and there are valid reasons to be an Apple hater. But like, it's one of these things where I'm like, it's easy to look back and to think, oh yeah, this one thing that I believe in now after the fact is fully justified in whatever value that I put towards it. But we don't do that for the things that we claim to invest in right now. You see what I mean? And I'm not saying that everyone's investing in the next Apple or next Facebook or something. I'm saying that like, there's almost like very little conviction, but because of that, it almost like robs you of the ability to find good opportunities. And I say that because I'm like, look, if you were very invested in what Apple could do as a software technology, like, there'd be a ton of other fintech startups that are basically saying we're doing all this, but it would have to come down to your conviction for this particular technology. That would really determine if you're going to like sort of benefit or not. And I see a lot of this FOMO culture. I feel like I see more people miss out because they were interested in something and then they jumped around and then they missed not only the original opportunity, but every single other jumped around opportunity too. It's like have you seen the line where like you go in one line and it like goes a little bit to the other line? Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, that's exactly how
Listen, If I go to the grocery store, I've learned this in my life, and someone says, "Oh, there's a shorter line down there." I'm like, "Nope, I'm staying right here," because every freaking time that I move the line,
You
something
end up
happens where
waiting
it takes me
longer.
3 times as long.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I wanted to I want to say this. Okay. So I get what you're saying about the meme culture, and the FOMO, and how, even where it might take away from, what you all are doing, with the XDC network and some of these other blockchains that are really, building industry type products, real products. However, now, and you said you're starting to see a culture where they're wanting people to start building more meme type things on the XDC network. Well, XRP Ledger just got that, with this newest, Telegram bot and everything, and so there's been a frenzy over it. And I will say this: um, I've seen the community come together in a way that I haven't before, particularly in the XRP community, where they're trying to prevent people from getting wrecked, in some of these things. And what I've seen is it gives the opportunity, even because I didn't really understand the whole meme token thing or the NFT thing. Why are people building these things? What are the importance of them? And I will say, number one, when it comes to the crypto, space, if there wasn't memes and this kind of, back and forth, it probably would be quite boring, and a lot of us people wouldn't even be in it at all. We wouldn't just naturally start looking on the internet and go like, "Oh, I wonder what they're building for this industry right now." You know what I mean? Like, people just probably wouldn't be doing that as much as what they are. So we're being brought up to speed on the serious technologies that you guys are building that are going to drive innovation and change the way that we do things. But this meme stuff, and the being able to create your own tokens and that sort of thing, I kind of see that as an experience for people that aren't coders. They're wanting to build a business. They want to build something, say, in the metaverse and that sort of thing, and trying to figure out and getting them to think, how can I take my real world business, my physical business, and how can I make it better and reach the audience or customers that are out in the metaverse, and build that in a way that, is on the blockchain. And so I think that's pretty exciting. And I just kind of want your take on it, because you're someone that is, you're so far down the road and so experienced. But for those of us that aren't, having the opportunity to learn these types of things, and even having a platform with which we can go in and monkey around with it and try to build something, on the blockchain and have a viable business in the future, is a pretty exciting thing, a pretty exciting opportunity. So I kind of just want to wonder what you thought about that.
Yeah, so like memes in themselves are like kind of interesting. The real question comes down to the level of sustainability around like that community, I guess you could say. I say that because like this is what we see. And it's not even memes themselves. It's like, let's call them. So we got memesters and we got hustlers, right? Memesters, let's just say they're like genuine people trying to create communities. They're for the laughs, they're for the jokes. And then hustlers are trying to make a buck. And what you end up having is you have a lot of hustlers that realize that you can use that meme community to be able to pump up different projects. I'm not saying that happens in XRP's community. I'm saying that you get hustlers in any meme community trying to come and do this. Um, Now, what I think is really interesting is to what you said before, is that these like meme tokens or meme projects allow for like a way for regular people to sort of like dip their nose or dip their toes
Yeah.
into some of these crypto platforms and the potentialities and all these different things. And I think that's true. I think it comes down to, so the average everyday retail person is almost like this like boot. It's almost like this like bootstrap or like this it's like this boot capital, right, to a given ecosystem. So like if you didn't have, now it's not even really memes, because you can almost call Bitcoin the original meme token. You know, the meme of we're gonna topple the banks, it's gonna be the whatever. But the general notion of if there isn't any capital in it to begin with, then sort of that network effect component can't be utilized by bigger organizations that need bigger networks to utilize. So you're able to essentially get this initial crowd of people in, this initial bit of liquidity into a given system before you're able to scale that system with people that otherwise wouldn't have given it the time of day because it was too small to even consider. And by too small to even consider, I mean like multi-billion, I mean like billion-dollar market cap like networks are still too small to consider. So like the mere fact that a lot of these networks can become so big off of just this boot up capital because of these communities is huge. I think it's sort of this, it's something that can't be done in any other capacity. It's weird. The closest thing that you can find is like crowdsource or like
Crowdfunding.
Kickstarter.
Oh yeah,
Crowdfunding, yeah,
crowdfunding. Yeah.
sorta. That's sorta, but that's not even
GoFundMe,
close
like
either. Like
type thing, you mean?
yeah, yeah, but that's the thing. This is like global crowdfunding because anybody in the world can now
Mm,
participate versus trying to go through some one platform, and it's not a single payment terminal versus that one platform. It just there's a lot of things that come involved that's really interesting about it. Not to mention you have capital that becomes more valuable, and then that capital is used as capital for other new projects that also become more valuable, and then that capital that's like Bitcoin. Like people take out a Bitcoin, go into Ethereum, take out Ethereum, go into that's like you. So you have this other dynamic that's really interesting in which this initial capital is able to sort of jumpstart this environment where like real players can start dealing with. And I only say that not to say that regular people aren't real players. There's just not enough capital for like, just like you said before, like people wouldn't otherwise be interested in these markets.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know how to describe it. It's super weird. Like you need these people to come into these markets and you need the attention to bring them into the markets. So you now have capital for these markets to scale off of the people who have capital to scale the markets. And it's sort of this weird dynamic. I think that's like the place where memes or meme coins or whatever have in the system is this boot up capital and this boot up attention and sort of this community component as well. But to be honest, you could argue that the community component doesn't need the tokens for the community to exist.
Hmm. Do you have anything to add, Kita, before I have a question from author, poet, and CL Brown, but I
yeah,
wanted
and
you to be able to speak
one of
before
the
I put it up
things
there.
one of the things that I noticed, and I know we were talking about people actually getting into this space, and especially with like the meme culture, meme world, I feel like in some instances they just kind of need something that will get their attention, and that attention seeker, whether that is it's a really cool picture, it's a really cool saying, you know. As a matter of fact, if you've seen my avatar now, it's one of our illustrious, beautiful NFTs from Miss Optimistic Prime. So I am totally in it and get it. But at the same time, when people see that, they're like, hey, what's that? And where'd that come from? And how can I get into that? How can I be a part of that? You know what I mean?
It's a
So I think
community.
that absolutely it's a network, right? It definitely is a network. And this ecosystem has every single part of it that will bring different people into it for different reasons. So that's how I see, that part of it. I kind of wanted, you gave us a really great, answer as to how you see that network, but how do you see the NFTs moving? Because I've seen different aspects of the NFTs, whether it's, utilizing it for some type of land, or using it for the metaverse, or utilizing it for some type of really vital documentation that may not necessarily be able to be tokenized, whether it's, utilizing it for health records, or whether it's utilizing it for, purchasing a home and a title, or, it's for art, or it's for anything else. How do you see that moving into the future?
Yeah, so this actually goes into, so it sounds weird to say this, but like an NFT, it's not a thing, it's a type of thing.
Hmm.
And I say that because when people sort of assume NFT, they sort of like think of like the art or the pictures or whatever. But really, you should be thinking of a unit of account on a shared network. That's what you should be thinking of. A individual
Mm-hmm.
unit of account on a shared network. And I say this because in the code, what makes an NFT is that you have a contract and then you have a digit and then you're just referencing that digit in that contract, and then that is referenced as a token, an individual token. But it's a unit of account, and I say that because it's abstract. It could be anything. It could be anything you want. It could be points. It could be assets. It could be the amount of
Something of
times I click my
value,
fingers.
basically.
Yeah, it could be anything. Literally anything. It's as arbitrary as numbers in a database. Except this is a
Mm,
shared database where I can move one number from one account to another account without necessarily syncing two databases. So that's the key way to look at NFTs. This type of thing that really represents a digital representation of an object, but it's just a representation of a unit of account. Now that unit of account, like, and I say that because it's easy to think of it as like a stock or something, but it could be literally anything. If I wanted to use it as a point system or use it as now I say that because what makes it the type of thing is what you do with it. So let's say I wanted to create an NFT for every single time a point was scored in a basketball game, and then the total amount of NFTs in a given contract may show the total amount of points in a game or something. I'd say that's a little bit over the top for something as simple as that, but you can do that. It's just as arbitrary as representing a individual object or an individual abstract representation of an object and being able to move that between different accounts. So yeah, it could be a stock, it could be a bond, it could be a contract, it could be literally anything. Anything that can be represented as an object or unit of account, that token can be represented as. The only catch, I guess you could say, is that it's a individual object. It can't be divided any further. So like if you
mm.
had a key, you have one key. You can't split that key into two. You see what I mean? Or split it in half or anything. That's it. It's just a unit of count. That's the way and I say that because when you look at it that way, what ends up happening is everything's an NFT. Everything's an NFT. Everything that can be referenced as an object or referenced as a unit of account. Let me put that differently. Anything that can be referenced as a unit of account that's entirely predicated on being shared between multiple parties. If it's used as a unit of account, but it never leaves that contract, it doesn't need to be a token. But if it is used as a unit of account and it does leave that token, then it's probably going to be an NFT of some sort. And that NFT is going to be referenced in other contracts depending on who's custodying it. And then the code's going to determine what it does, whether it's a key, whether it's representing a stock, derivative, points, redemption points, or what's called rewards points, anything. It can literally be anything. It's just sort of like this shared unit of account on this database that people can sort of tap into.
Hmm.
I like that
I
answer. Thank you.
yeah, I'm definitely going to listen back and write down because you just explained that nicely where
Yes, you did.
I need to pound that in my brain. I just discovered that Throw, the person that's been in here chatting, is Bearable Chicken. And
Oh,
he messaged me on Twitter and he asked he says the RESPA laws for real estate transactions, I think, would need to be updated to reflect digital asset capabilities. And he was curious what Q thinks about that. Do you have any
Yes,
thoughts on that?
I don't know what the RESPA laws are, but I know the main thing people are doing now is the SPV route, tokenize the SPV or the company that custodies whatever real estate is in. And then they basically treat that SPV as the property, but they represent it as a token. I know that much. I don't know what the RESPA laws are though.
Mm. And then there's one other question here. Author and poet C.L. Brown, Quincy, one thing I've been trying to find out since XDC 2.0 went live, I'm a developer as well. I'm curious to know what are we seeing now as far as TPS 1, the XDC network. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, the TPS is still relatively the same. But the settlement times used to be like 3 seconds. Now I think they're 2 seconds. Yeah, nothing really changed. Not much change.
What's TPS stand
what's it? I
for?
was just about to ask the
The,
same
trans-
thing.
the transactions per second.
Oh,
So the
duh.
TPS is 2,000 right now. At least it should be.
Acronyms.
Actually,
Oh, this
TPS is
acronym.
entirely a theoretical construct because in order to, so I say this is actually a funny question or a funny notion. Um, in theory, the XCC TPS can go as high as 4,000. It just hasn't been stress tested that high, at least not in like a production environment. So it can safely, easily do 2,000 TPS. But from a theoretical standpoint, it can go as high as 4,000. Hell, like there's almost an element of like potentially even higher depending on what time or what point the networks are stalling out. But yeah, we say 2,000 because that's the operating the most well-known operating TPS, but it can technically be higher. At least we tested it in private environments. So you got to remember, testing it in a private environment doesn't compare to what like actual involvement would be like. So maybe it's not as high as 4K, but
Mm. Well, I know that you said you could only stay an hour, and we're quarter after the hour.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't know if there were any more questions. There were just such
no,
good questions.
I know, and I wanted to let you have the opportunity to say anything else that you wanted to say. I don't see any more questions. If anybody has a question that didn't get answered, if you quickly type it in the chat below, we can get him to answer that real quick. I'm real excited about everything that's happening. I do think it is different. The culture, the meme culture and that sort of thing is much different than kind of like what you're doing. But I do think that does serve a purpose, and it does bring eyes, sometimes negative, on the into the space also. But I think it also kind of brings eyes on things, people like you, like yourself, and what you're doing. And I think it's super cool that you come and talk with us, and share your knowledge, and inspire other people, and give us a chance to understand, those of us that are interested, to understand what you're building, and so that maybe someday somebody would want to participate in that as well. And so I mean, I really thank you for sharing your time and thoughts with us. I mean, you're such a bright person. Reese Cup, I don't know if you know this person, but we're super proud of you, Quincy. Huh?
Appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty,
There
it's
is. Did you see
oh,
that question about X swap? Did you see that?
quick summary of XSwap. Is that the one,
Um,
Kita?
Yes,
yeah,
that's the one I was
yeah, X
Yeah,
talking
I
swaps
about.
the
don't.
debt.
Yeah, I don't know
It's
about.
just a debt. Um, I'd say they're really good. They're pretty good. X swaps are good decks, but that's it. Like they're really not that much different than many of the other dexes. They're one of the primary dexes on XBC though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd say XSpot, Globines, and Fathom are probably our three biggest dexes right now.
Where are you? Where are you? We got Island Ghost in here. Hey, lady. And Tiara says, excellent information. Thanks for another great interview. We thank you for coming to the show.
As always, your brain is just freaking amazing, and it's always good to be able to pick your brain about, these things that you are so well versed in. We so thank
I
you
appreciate
for
that.
just being giving of your time and your energy and your, just your overall expertise in this area, especially for those novices like us who are just trying to wade through this space and trying to understand as much as possible. Um, it's really, I mean, listen, like I said, I'm always trying to just keep up.
Who's your
Yeah,
who?
yeah, I see that there's just like so much like there's just like information overload in the space.
Yeah.
And it's just like so hard to sort of get a grounding on like what the hell is going on? Like, and I
Uh,
think part of it is just like a perspective. Like, I think honestly, the only thing that's really grounded me was the only reason I have this perspective was I worked at a private equity, regular ass, old fashioned private equity firm, and they got into crypto and they had like a bunch of contingencies on it. And that was basically formed my whole perspective on crypto. Like,
but here's the thing about it, Quincy. A lot of people don't realize that you have a degree in finance. Like people don't realize that part. They think you're just a techie, but they don't realize that you really have a background in this. And I love
yeah, it's
the
actually
fact that
really
you
funny about that. Yeah, like it's just like people are just like, "Oh, you're a dev," and I'm like, actually, I've had like a lot of experience in like finances. Actually, I used to be a straight up finance bro in college, like hands down,
yeah.
like blazered up, going to all the freaking like events and stuff. Like, I don't think you get. I used to be one of those douchebags, but
Well, if you're this vested in the digital asset space and in, into cryptocurrencies and understanding how this tech works, it makes sense that you would be that versed as well in the financial world if you found that interesting, which obviously you do, and then the two
yeah,
get together and it's just like this perfect marriage between the two.
Yeah, it's kind of like a perfect combo out of out
Hmm.
of nowhere. Just
Uh, quick one. Approximately how many countries are now adopting ML Leader and testing on XDC? Do you know?
I don't know what ML leader is,
I don't either.
and for countries,
I don't know.
I'd say XCC is most prominent in Singapore, India, Dubai, some parts of Europe. And then, funny enough, I'd say like the least exposure we have is in the US.
Ain't that
Wow,
always the case, though,
that's
right? I
Yeah,
crazy.
mean,
right.
not really surprised by that at
Me
all.
neither.
I mean, gosh, I had a question in my head before I put the Meliter question up, and now it escapes me. Darn it! Oh, I know. I want to one of these days get your friend from XRP Cafe that I met that you were hanging out
Oh,
with.
Adam, Adam.
I would
Oh, you
love to
should.
get
He's
that.
so cool.
I
Oh my
I
God,
want
yes.
I want hook me up with Adam. Let's get Adam on here.
Oh my God, the
Because
XRP Cafe guys are so cool. Oh my
let's
God, no, you love
yes,
them. Oh my God.
so
Just
my
to let you
friend.
know, 68J is in the chat right now,
Oh, awesome.
by the
Yeah,
way.
he said he might be able to pop in. No, but Adam from XRP Cafe, I met him at XRP Las Vegas. Super nice guy. My friend Optimistic Prime and a bunch of others, they're building their NFTs and that on XRP Cafe. She's got her token and everything on there, and they're just having great fun with it. He really has provided something that is helping the newbies out, and so it'd be fun to have him to come in. Oh yeah, Simon's like, I got his number. Yeah, get him on the
Yeah,
show,
Adam's
Simon.
a real good guy. Like
Yes,
he's really cool, very technical,
super
but
nice.
also like very good at communication. He's a lot of good. I'd probably say I'm surprised he's not bigger in the XRP space. I know they're big, like XRP Cafe's big, but like I'm surprised he's not bigger. He's really good at breaking down a lot of XRP stuff.
I think he's just really quiet. Like from just even just meeting him, he is very quiet. He's not somebody. He doesn't seem like somebody that's wanting to like put himself out there too much. But obviously he's pretty awesome. He's
I say get him comfortable. He's really cool. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you want to share before before you have to leave us?
I might say one last thing to this. I'm actually like really interested to see like what this next year is gonna come from the space. Sort of like I guess the thing that sort of has me sort of excited is I feel like there's like this new wave of attention on crypto. And in a way, I feel like it sort of like breaks the traditional norms of like these hype cycles. It's not even really just the election. It's just sort of like this like new positive outlook on what the future potential could be. Now, that's not to say everything's going to be like hunky dory, like fun and rainbows. Like it's crypto, by the way, right? It could be hell. Like we can wake up tomorrow and it's just like rain. Like, But it's just one of these things where I'm like, I feel like there are like new variables at play that really make it interesting to see how it's going to come out. And obviously, people are excited because the happening was a little bit ago, and the election things are propping up. But I don't know. I think this cycle is a bit different. I think the perspective's different. I think the overall like perception's different. Hopefully in a good way. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know, just different vibes this year. And I don't know. Before when I first came on the scene, I was like very vocal all over the place and kind of like dive back a bit, just because like I said, there's like that time where you're focusing on like marketing almost and then
Yeah.
building and it's actually funny. Like we've had like a tilt. So like in the past month, it's been like tilting from like working on different projects into seeing where the attention's going. And I don't know. It's exciting. It's a lot's going on. It's just I don't know. I'm really excited to see how this next year is going to come out. You're probably seeing more of me because more excitement and talking and stuff like that. Like I said, it's like these two. It's like two ends of the spectrum. Either it's full build mode or full like sort of like talking and marketing and live stream mode. Like But this is different. That's what makes it interesting. This is different, and I don't know. Maybe Elon's more involved in this cycle or something. But I don't
I
know. This is really cool.
I think so. I just want to say the XDC network is so lucky to have you because, as Keita said, with you having a history in finance and being able to code and understand all of that, what a valuable asset you are. To be able to, because there's a big difference, right? The two mindsets. I mean, well, there might be some similarities in like processes and that sort of thing, but to really understand finance and then be building something, you can probably see certain things that others that don't know finance can't see, and so they're definitely they're lucky to have you. They should give you a raise, XDC Network, if you're listening. And he didn't pay me to say that. I'm just saying, what a talented young man that to have in your pocket, and treat this young man well. Treat him well.
Protect Quincy Jones.
Amen. Huh? The old Quincy Jones is gone.
Oh yeah, he passed last week. Yeah, that was crazy.
So
Yeah.
now we've got the Quincy Jones.
I know. Now I'm the Quincy Jones.
Now
you are the Quincy Jones. Oh yeah,
tough shoes to fill, but you are already filling them, sir, and and taking names, and that's the beautiful thing about it. It was beautiful to hug your neck when we met in Las Vegas.
It was so much fun. Yeah.
So fun. So fun.
I'm going to XRP Las Vegas again. For
Are
sure.
we going to plan that again? Is that what we're doing?
Might as well, honestly. I feel like that's going to be like a yearly, watch 10 years from now, it's going to be like the thing. Like everyone's going to be fighting to get into XRP Las Vegas.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be in May again. So hopefully it's around the end of May. But I am planning on it. I'm going. It's happening. So we got 127 people that came in to see it, Quince.
Oh,
very
wow.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. That's very awesome. We thank you.
It is awesome.
I don't want to. I don't want to take up too much of your time going over because I want you to come back. So
I appreciate it.
If you have to leave, I understand, and but we will definitely have you back on whenever you are willing and able. If you ever want to just pop in the dip a toe and talk with us, we would love it.
Honestly, just reach out. I'll probably be way more proactive now. Like I said, when we're in build mode, I'm never on Twitter. But then when we're in talk mode, I spend all my time on Twitter. So now I'm I'm back on Twitter again. Crap. Just reach out. Most of the time I should be good, but I'm never on Twitter when we're in build mode. So it may take me a while to get back.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, we thank you
so
guys
much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and don't go away, guys. We're gonna chat for a little bit longer, but we want to say goodbye to Quincy and thank you again for coming. And we will see you next time. Okay.
Okay, I love it. Thank you so much for having me. It was lots of fun. I hope to see you guys again in Las Vegas. That would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, it's happening. It's happening, my friend.
That's gonna definitely be a hangout time because I didn't get a chance to really hang out with you like I wanted to. But I think it's gonna be a whole.
That was actually crazy. Yeah, we got to coordinate this next time. Yeah.
We need a driver, I think.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we need Ubers.
Yeah, we need one person that's responsible.
Just a constant driver.
That part.
That's
get a bus. The XRP bus. We're just driving around the bus.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We'll just all pitch in a couple $100 each, and then be like, "Man, help us out. Take us where we need to go, my friend." All right. Thank you so much, Quincy. We'll see you soon.
Have a great night, Quincy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
What a wonderful interview.
Oh my gosh, that was
He's such a great. I love him.
And he's such a light. He has such an amazing personality. And we can say that when he's out of the room. I would say that when he was in the room as well. He just really has such a great spirit, great heart, and such an amazing mind. That's the most amazing part of it.
He does. I mean, I learn so much every time that I talk to him, and I'm glad that we record this show so that I can listen back and understand what he's saying, because he says things so quickly, which I think is
Yes.
actually, it's a good thing though too,
Yes,
because
it is.
this is another asset of his, right? Like,
Yes.
because I don't know about you, Kita, but when I first got into the crypto space, I tried originally to learn about Bitcoin
Oh, okay.
years ago, like way
Yep.
when it first came out. And everything that I listened, it was so boring. And so it seemed so like overcomplicated, to where I was like, nope, I ain't buying it. I don't know what this stuff is.
I
I
don't know what
can't
it
figure
is.
this out.
Yep.
Right. And so I just stopped. He can explain things in a way that you can understand with
Yep.
such an upper energy type of way. And
It's
if you,
that exuberance. That's what it
yes,
is. It's his
and if you
exuberance.
ask him to slow down, if you ask him, he will come back around and give his point. And so I just say, like, again, XDC Network, kudos to you for snatching him up, because
Yeah.
this guy is incredible. What a wonderful spokesperson for the XDC Network, and just to be as talented as he is.
And
And
it's
he'll
interesting.
explain it. It's just incredible.
Did you know that he's been coding ever since he was 12?
I'm not surprised. I did not know that. I did not know that,
Oh,
but it doesn't surprise me at all.
yeah. That part right
Uh,
there just makes it even, and I don't want to call him a savant, because I don't think that it's really a savant situation. I think he's just wired that way. I think
yeah.
he's one of those, he to me almost feels like he's like a cinephile. You know what I mean? And the cinephiles are those that can see music as colors, see and
Mm.
hear music as colors. And I feel like he's more along that line when it comes
Yep.
to this,
Yep.
as opposed to music. And I think
Mhm.
that's just so amazing and so dope. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm really taking myself
Marvin
back.
Davis says he talks fast because he thinks fast. It's like, yes.
Yes. His brain
Uh,
fires like at 1,000 seconds a moment. Like, it's crazy how his brain fires. Yeah.
Nina Blossom, thank you for coming. She says, great
Yes.
interview.
Thank you.
I already did that one. BBB says, thank you, Quincy, always showing and proving that you're about community. Thank you to the hostesses as well. Thank you, BBB, for stopping
Thank you.
by. We appreciate
Absolutely.
you very much so. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I just I'm super, we don't even have to have this show go like the normal 2.5, 3 hour, I'm
Yeah.
like, actually we could call it a night. So those of you that are watching, if you didn't hear the top of the show, I apologize. We were supposed to have Smoke on the second hour, and we were going to talk about the network effect, and he was going to go into his ideals surrounding that, and kind of go into a little bit of his research. Unfortunately, he had to reschedule, but he does want to come on the show, and so we're going to try to make that happen as soon as possible. Yeah, I was bummed out. I was like, no, this was great. But actually, I think when I have him on, I would love to have Brooke come back. We've had Brooke come on,
She's
Brooke
amazing.
Odyssey. Yes, and she really does a lot of research surrounding money, the history of money. And also, Mr. Mann is an incredible researcher. So I was hoping to line those two up with Smqke, because I think they would complement each other well, and we could have a smashing show between the three of them on there. So hopefully those two couldn't come this week, because where are they? They are at XRP Unleashed, aka Rigged, the new movie.
Yes, that's the name of
Chris
it.
and Maya at Fruition Productions. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet for that, you can go to fruitionproductions.com and get your streaming ticket. I think it goes live on November 21st. It's $15. And I mean, it's going to be an incredible, people that have seen the movie. 68J went to the what is it, the American movie festival, where they kind of want to buy films and that sort of thing, and they were premiering and previewing the film. And he said he was there and you could hear a pin drop. He said it was just, everybody was just glued to the screen, couldn't believe that the information was coming out. And we also heard that President Trump and J.D. Vance and Robert Kennedy Jr. were given a copy of the film. I know
Yes,
at
I
least
saw
they've
that.
seen the premiere of, or the previews for it. I don't know if they've seen the whole film, but if they've watched those previews, chances are they're going to want to watch the whole film. And then who knows from there what will happen. I mean, it's pretty incredible what's going on right now. Just in general with the election, I mean, there's some big changes coming in the world, people, and I mean, it's been all lining up. The election actually went the way I thought it would. And I do think it's going to be good for this digital asset space and America in general, just given for, and I say that because, not because of being left, right, whatever. I don't care about that stuff, guys. Don't put me in a box. I'm just saying, I don't like to be put in a box or be called one thing or another. But I do think that this particular administration is going to be, it's going to move our innovation forward, and to be competitive with the rest of the world. That is a necessity. Like, we need to be competitive with the rest of the world, and I think we have been in the background all of this time. And so once that changeover happens, that switch is going to be turned on, and the innovation is going to flow, and things are going to get turned on. I think. I mean, that's just my opinion, but and I do think that this movie coming out is timely. That exposes the corruption regarding the SEC and our governmental agencies of what they the little games that they play, what they're doing in the background, and most of us have been oblivious to it for so many years. Those of us that have been giving this kind of stuff attention for the past 7-8 years, we know very well what's been going on, but the mass public doesn't. And so I feel like this
Didn't they
film is
voice
going to
that? Didn't
expose it.
they voice that about that? Isn't that, I mean, because from
Yes.
what I understand, didn't Trump either see it or, see
The
an
preview.
actual preview of it? And if
Yes.
that's the case, I'm sure he has lots of questions concerning it
Mhm.
from what I understand. And I think that it's just desserts right now. So hats off to Fruition Films, Maya and Chris, and all that
Yes.
they've done, and Echo, and I'm super duper excited to see. I know I have my my pre-sale my ticket for the actual
I got
release,
mine.
so I'm excited about that.
I really wanted to go tonight. Mr. Man is in Houston for
Mm.
that premiere, and the whole Reaper crew's there, which just kills me. Like, I just wanted to go and see all these guys, but I wasn't able to go. And for those Dipitoers that don't know, apparently Melissa has an appearance in the film. So I'm
Yes, you
actually
do.
in the movie.
That's
Not
really,
one.
can I tell you, that's one of the main reasons why I went on ahead and purchased
Oh
it.
gosh. I know. I'm like, oh my gosh. I I I I'm curious to see what I said. I don't even know what I said. Um, but I think it's great fun, and I'm completely honored to even be included in the film. I just think it's super, super cool. I do want to mention this. Crypto J says, hope to see you all in the morning on our Shikaka coin Ask Me Anything with CoinBX at 5:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you follow Crypto J, it's at 68J on Twitter, on X. He's going to live stream that, or you can go to the Crypto for Life page, and I'm sure you'll be able to see it from there. And speaking of which we never do this, so I thought that I would play the little Shikaka song because it's my favorite. So, in honor of the AMA tomorrow, I'm going to play this. So here we go.
Shaka coin, take me higher. Blockchain dreams fueled with fire. Block after block, we break the chains. Digital golden path, no pain. Base chain ringing out the call. Seize the world, watch them all fall. 0 to millionaire in a flash. Cryptographic power stash. Stack up shiny coin, yeah. Freedom in every bite, yeah. Shake the race to free man. Change the game with your hands.
I love that song so much. It's my favorite. Huh?
I like that.
I
a
think
lot.
whoever made that's like the best. When I see people making these little videos, like AI can do it and do the song and the tune and everything, and I'm like, I've got to learn. There are so many things that with this whole AI stuff that I want to learn, and that's one of them for sure. But do you have any closing thoughts? I was looking in Big Watch Dude, do you ladies think Trump will have a change of mind about Charles once he sees the documentary? About Charles Hoskins or Charles?
Hodgkinson. I think he's talking about the because Charles Hodgkinson was actually rumored to be part of the crypto council that
Oh,
Donald Trump is trying to implement, and he may. I mean, but I think that it's not just him. I think that it'll be across the board, and I'm not necessarily saying that Charles Hodgkinson has done anything wrong. You know what I mean? I think that it's probably, from this vantage point, we don't know what happened then. And I think
no.
that, we're going to get some insight, but that does not give us the full picture. And I think that people need to be a bit more balanced in their thought process when they get that information and take a look at it and really think for themselves and not necessarily take what somebody else says, but go ahead and think it for yourself. Get the information. It may be presented to you a certain way, but you have to look at that and use. I'm gonna say it because a lot of people don't have it, but I am gonna say it. Use common sense. If it don't sound right, it ain't right. If
Yeah.
it sounds, you know what I'm saying? If it sounds like it's right, you might want to look a little bit further because there might be a little bit more to the whole situation than
There's
is being
always
presented
something.
to you. Exactly. Because people are going to make the narrative the way they want it to be. And you
Yes.
have to really be a free thinker and really look at the information and say, does that make sense at
Yes.
all?
You
You know
know,
what I mean? And a
well,
lot
here's
of
the
people
other
don't
thing
do
that
that.
I don't know if people realize either. So apparently, I mean, so Charles Hoskins, he has a unique personality. Okay,
Mhm.
he could be a little brash. I personally wasn't a super fan of his. That doesn't
Isn't Trump the same way though?
correct exactly. I don't like his personality necessarily, right?
No.
So here's the thing. But is the guy a genius? Or like, does he do well? Does he have
Mhm.
passion for the space? Yes.
And
So
is
here's
he going to be good for the digital asset
I
space? Is
mean,
what
that's what
we're
I'm saying.
looking
Like
for.
he's been there since the beginning. Okay. So I don't
Mhm.
know what's in the movie because I haven't seen the movie. So a lot of people are speculating that there might be something bad. I'm not so sure. All I do know is, I hate to use the term like we're watching a movie, guys, but there's been so much stuff that's happened over the past 7, 8, 9 years. If you can't see by now that there's people playing characters and some of the good guys might be bad guys and some of the bad guys might be good guys, I don't know what to tell you, but that's the truth. How do you get a handle on corruption if you're not able to infiltrate it? So You have to be on the inside to see what's really going on. And so some of these people that we think are bad apples or whatever might actually be good. We don't really know. So like, Kita's saying, like, we just have to take it with a grain of salt. What I do know is dude went on a retreat, a little sabbatical for himself, because, he was needing some time away. He came back. He apologized to the XRP community for any nastiness that he had said to them. And then I saw that he had a meeting with Brad Garlinghouse. They both are like kumbayaing together and looking forward to working together. And I say kudos to them because, I'm all about the blockchains. Like I said earlier, when Quincy was here, we got to work together. We got to work together. And as Quincy was saying, the some of these networks, they're building things to the big guys. Okay. This is our opportunity to work together to build things for the little guys. Okay. Our small businesses and that sort of thing. Learn this shit so that you don't have to depend on the big guys to operate your business. If you can build your own infrastructure and you understand how to do it, as long as you're building within the parameters and whatever, you'll be fine, So I think we have exciting times ahead of us. We're living in the greatest transfer of wealth ever, and it's incredible. And all of you that come, thank you so much for coming to the Dip and Toe Show and supporting. If you please hit the like and share and subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. We're starting to get a little bit of algorithm action, which is amazing. And we're growing every day, little by little. And so we thank you for anyone that ever likes or shares or comments or any of that. It all helps. And so that's awesome. I don't know what we're doing next week. But I'm going to think of something. We're going to come up with something. I have a lot of people in the pipeline. I've been going on spaces a lot with Optimistic Prime. There's a lot of builders that are building projects on the XRP ledger that I want to have come on the show. Several of them are interested. And so I'm going to be reaching out to them and try to schedule them. Oh, no. What am I saying? I have a show lined up that's awesome next week. Karma coverage. I don't know if those of you on that are on Twitter, X, but Karma coverage is someone that goes in and out of multiple spaces. He is a developer, a long time developer. He has an exciting new project that he has been working on forever that he has built. They've completed it. And I'm going to let him talk all about it. But it's pretty exciting what he's built, what he's been working on. And so he will be coming on in next week's show. So I'm really looking forward to that. And you have any final thoughts? Nina Blossom, thank you. Nina Blossom subscribed. We love it. Fishing with Camo Joe says interoperability. Amen. Yeah, we need it. We need it.
Well, I do have to say that Quincy really sent some electricity to my brain,
Always.
especially after being up at like 4:45 in the morning. So, uh, so this brain was needing that type of energy just to ignite and
I
really
feel
be
you.
able to understand, have those types of conversations. So first of all, thank you to everybody for being here with us as we had this conversation with Quincy and dipping your toe into crypto because we're talking about this and it's really important as this is your community and these are the people that you're going to be around. So you need to be able to commune with everyone and be able to speak with all those people that want to give this type of information. So thank you, Melissa, for really taking the time and reaching out to Quincy and making sure that he's able to be here. Thank you to Quincy for offering his time information and just genius that he is, you know what I mean, for a space that is so young and burgeoning into what we're going to see in the future and what's going to be here for our
Amen.
kids. So, for me, I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm excited for what's happening. As we saw, we got a $94,000 Bitcoin, and
It's
it may
incredible.
not necessarily be
It's
something that we
incredible.
are or aren't invested in, but it's really innovation. We're seeing it come to fruition. And what a time to be alive
Man, it's
in this
exciting.
right here. It's
Yeah.
exciting.
Nina Blossom wants to know what time your show is tomorrow. Keeping it 100 with Pete and the crew.
Okay, so we will be keeping it 100 with Keita and the crew, and my crew is Miss Melissa right here. So we'll be on tomorrow night at 7 Central Standard Time, right there on X. It'll be a beautiful space. You know me when I come out and we have our discussions, just like the discussion that we have here with Melissa. I don't stand for any mess. We're here to respect each other and have great conversation. It doesn't mean that we're going to always agree, but it does mean
Exactly.
that we're going to have a good conversation and be able to hear each other's sides. So as we move forward, we're going to delve into some more of this type of situation, how we can bring our community together. And don't forget your libations because it is Thirsty Thursday.
Amen. And I want to thank you for coming and co-hosting with me with our Simon working evenings. It's hard.
Yes, yes.
So we really appreciate you doing that, Keita. And
Absolutely.
and don't forget, folks, that Simon now he's doing a little preview before the Dipito show. And then on Thursdays, he's cutting his response videos for everyone so that you could still have your taste of Simon, your little Dipito of Simon. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with for his tomorrow comments. But thank you everyone for coming. We'll see you all tomorrow, hopefully at Keita's Keeping It 100 with Keita and the crew. And we will see you back here next week. Same time, same bat channel. You guys have a good rest of your day. Have a good night, Keita.
Have a good night.